Well, we're going to start with Psalm 61. It is a Psalm of David. I'm trying to do Psalms of David since that's what we're studying. And this is a psalm for security and assurance. Whenever we can trust that God will be there and answer our cries for help. And I thought about that in the snow, that God was there and answering our cries for help, even Tom, when he fell. Hear my cry, O God. Give heed to my prayer. From the end of the earth, I will call to you when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been a refuge for me, a tower of strength against the enemy. Let me dwell in your tent forever. Let me take refuge in the shelter of your wings. For you have heard my vows, O God. You have given me the inheritance of those who fear your name. You will prolong the king's life. His years will be as many generations. He will abide before God forever. Appoint loving kindness and truth that they may preserve him. So I will sing praise to your name forever, that I may pay my vows day by day. Okay. This psalm was written when David narrowly escaped one of Saul's attempts to kill him. So this was...
I was wondering about that, because it's interesting that he says prolong the life of the king. I was thinking, was this written when David was king or when Saul was king?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and we'll see in the lesson today that David truly mourned when Saul died. As he said, it was not for him to take out God's opinion, that only God should take out God's opinion. Okay. Hey. Terribly. We hear you're a very polite boy. Yeah. That's right. So, hi, Claire. Hi, Claire.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Good. Sarah, would you read First Psalm, chapter 30, First Samuel.
Translated.
Yeah. Verses 16 through 31.
My Bible, it's not real clear where verses start exactly, so this may not be perfect. You said 16 to 31?
Yes.
Okay. Then I shall lead you down to this raiding party. And he led him down, and look, they were sprawled out all over the ground, eating and drinking and reveling, with all the vast booty they had taken from the land of the Philistines and the land of Judah. And David struck them from daybreak till the evening of the next day, and not a man of them got away except for the 400 lads who rode off on camels and fled. And David rescued all that the Amalekites had taken, and his own 2 wives David rescued. And nothing of theirs was missing, from the youngest to the oldest, from sons to daughters to booty. All that they had taken for themselves, David restored it all. And David took all the sheep and the cattle. They drove before them that livestock and said, "This is David's booty." And David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to go with David. So he had them stay at the Wadi Besor, and they came out to greet David and to greet the troops who were with him. And David approached with the troops and asked how they fared. And every wicked and worthless man of the men who had gone with David spoke up and said, "Inasmuch as they did not go with us, we will give them nothing from the booty that we rescued, only each man his wife and his children, that they may drive them off and go." And David said, "You must not do so, my brothers, with what the Lord has given us. For he has guarded us and has given into our hands the raiding party that came against us. And who would listen to you in this matter? Rather, as the share of him who goes down into battle is the share of him who stays with the gear, together they shall share." And so from that day hence it became a set practice in Israel until this day. And David came to Ziklag, and he sent from the booty to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, "Here is a gift for you from the booty of the Lord's enemies, to those in Bethel, and to those in Ramoth Negeb, and to those in Jatir, and to those in Aror, and to those in Sifmoth, and to those in Eshtemoa, and to those in Rakel, and to those in towns of the Jerahmeelite, and to those in the towns of the Kenite, and to those in Hormah, and to those in Bor Ashan, and to those in Etshah, and to those in Hebron, and all the places where David with his men had moved about.
Thank you for pronouncing all those names.
It's amazing how difficult it was for me to follow. I mean, it basically says the same thing, but every other word is a different version. It was just like, where am I?
Well, and my translation said that David fought them from dusk until the evening of the next day. And that used to be the more accepted translation, but the commentary that I looked at said dusk is probably a bad translation here, and it should be, as you said, from dawn until evening of the next day. So he fought. Sorry. Okay, fought for an entire day. So
It's amazing that they sacked one city and they had enough plunder to give to all of those names of all of those places and their men and everything.
Well, if they sacked our house, they'd have enough.
I threw a month.
well, and especially right now, when everybody's been out stocking up for the snowmageddon, as Jeff called it.
Remember too that things were not written
Right.
meant to be.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it was meant to be allegorical.
The interesting thing is that the Philistines were so confident after their victory, they went home and started the victory celebration, drinking, eating, carousing, having a wonderful time. And the Amalekites, I'm sorry.
Are they related to the Philistines? Who are? I missed last week, so I don't know who the Amalekites are. Just some other people.
Nearby.
No.
I think that they were another enemy.
They were, because it says they
Right.
supposed that the Philistine and Israelite armies were far to the north, preparing to fight each other.
Okay.
So they must have been nearby. But looking at the situation, David had his men rest and attacked at first light when the Amalekites would be beginning the hangover section.
Yeah.
So not going to be at your best
No.
to fight in a battle. The Amalekites, finding the booty was rich and having got with it, as they thought, out of the reach of danger, were going ahead and having a revelry. They laid the thoughts of war aside. They weren't in any haste to house their prey. Let's see. David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away. Everything that they took, David took back and more. And it says that in 1 Samuel 36, which you did last week, Susan, it says David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And so God gave him the victory and more. And so then in 1 Samuel 30, verse 8, David inquired of the Lord, what should I do? First he strengthened himself, then he inquired, okay, Lord, what do I do next? And God promised, you will overtake them and have a full recovery of all. So God fulfilled his promise and more. So,
And the Amalekites, I think that it's even Moses even mentions them, that they were fighting them in Exodus, and And he was saying, death to all Amalekites, basically. And it says, after Joshua defeated the Amalekite army, God commanded Moses to record the event as a memorial, vowing eternal war against Amalek for their hostility.
Ooh, they're bad people. So God promised him the victory, but I think the thing that was interesting is that, but then God didn't expect him to sit back passively. God expected him, he invited his cooperation in this. Like, I'm here with you, but you've got a role. And I think sometimes we pray, oh God, do this for us. And we forget that we have a part that we're supposed to play in this. We don't just sit back and go, I don't know why God didn't make me well. Well, did you take your medicine? Did you go to see the doctor? Did you do all the things that you were supposed to do? Well, I just thought God would do it. Reminds me of that joke where the guy in the flood and he's up on the top of the house and God sends a boat and God sends people and God sends a helicopter and he keeps going, no, God's going to rescue me. And when he dies and goes to heaven, he says, why didn't you rescue me? He goes, I sent you 3 people to rescue you. So, this is truly the reminder that God expects us to participate in his plan. It says David rescued his 2 wives. He took all the booty plus his 2 wives. And that's mentioned specifically that he took his 2 wives. And maybe this was because David was particularly pleased that he got his wives back, or was particularly angered that they had taken his wives and was glad they were back and were safe. But I just thought that was interesting that they were particularly mentioned. He captured all the booty and his 2 wives.
I also thought it was interesting that he says, here is a present for you from the spoil, the enemies of the Lord. So when he's acknowledging the victory, he's also making a reference to God there. I think he's maybe indirectly trying to give credit to God. It's not just a human victory. This was God having it with it.
And he took back all they had taken, plus their flocks and herds. So more. He took more. And then and this was his troops called it David's spoil, David's booty. And let's see.
Well, last week they'd been ready to kill him.
Oh yeah.
When they came back to the city and everything was gone.
And I several of the commentators made the comment that they wondered about why David was allowed to keep the spoil of the Amalekites when Saul was expressly commanded in chapter 15 not to keep it from the Amalekites. It says, do not keep any spoil from that nation, and was judged by God for not keeping that command. But David was told, this particular commentator said David had no specific command from God to destroy all the spoils as Saul did. So David recovered what the Amalekites took from others because the flocks and herds supposedly were from the Philistines with their fight with the Philistines. So he was not only taking back what had been taken from the Israelites, but also everything they had taken. And David was not acting as the king of Israel here. He was still David the warrior. And so, but he was acting, I think, more king-like by inquiring of God, relying on God, where Saul's way past that in his kingship.
But when they say too that this is where after they got the plunder and he was dividing it up equally, or maybe not dividing it up among everyone, even if they didn't go fight with him. The people who were too tired and left behind, it's going to go to everyone. He was becoming a statesman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, this is the
Exactly.
first thing where he's kind of turning from warrior into
To king.
king.
Yeah, yeah.
If you couldn't take that stuff back, those people would always be a devil. I was just thinking about other periods of history, and specifically World War II. We bombed Japan, destroyed Japan basically, and then we got them rebuilt. So I think there's something about destroying the threat to yourself, but then providing some kind of humanitarian rebuilding process.
Oh, yeah. And then it talks about 200 men. David was following the Amalekites quickly. I mean, they were double step marching to get to them. And 200 of the men were just exhausted. And when they paused, David told those 200, stay and watch the supplies. And the others went ahead. And then when they came back to the 200 men, it says the worthless men, the wicked and worthless men. And it kind of goes to show that not everyone who followed David necessarily followed out of an allegiance to God. They were picking the strongest. Like, I want to be on the side of the winner, and I think David's going to be the winner. And so they said, hey, these 200 that didn't go, like, they can have their wives and kids back. They don't get any of the food. Like, let's watch out for ourselves. Let's make sure we were the ones who put our life at risk.
So, Angie, my Bible, I don't know if I misunderstood what you said, but my Bible has a slightly different take on that.
Okay.
They don't say that the worthless ones were the 200 who were too tired to go.
No, the worthless ones were the ones who were with
David.
David.
Okay.
That not everyone that went to fight with David went out of allegiance to the fact that God had said, I will give you this victory.
Okay.
They went because they wanted to back the winner.
Yeah.
And they wanted, if we're going to win, then we're going to get
We
stuff.
want the spoils.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to get stuff. David, though, was just and kind. They came forth to meet the conquerors and to congratulate them on their success. Though David received their address very kindly and he saluted them and asked them of peace. That's what the word inquired how they did, because he left them faint, not well. David saw by their countenances that it had been a long, hard time for them and that they had been praying, and David's soldiers, probably the same that had spoken of stoning him just a little bit past, now spoke of defrauding their brethren. Let's stone David because he's not a good leader. Ooh, David won. Let's defraud these guys. Easy to go back and forth. I think that it's interesting when David said, no, those that stay behind did as much as those that fought. He kind of establishes an important principle that those who watch the supply lines are just as vital as the soldiers, and God will reward both soldiers and supporters.
You all have a job to do.
Yeah, there are many.
Sometimes it's cleaning the toilet.
There are many people that do the behind the scenes work, and they don't necessarily get the same credit as those who are out there out front. And those of us who have put on an event know how much. I always say, you go somewhere and you walk away and go, God, it looks so effortless. Those of us that have put on an event know how much effort went into making it look effortless. Yeah, and that it's all those people that work behind the scenes. Having worked in a school, I always made friends with the custodians because I wanted to know, and they kept my room immaculate. Sometimes I'd leave candy bars on the desk and say, thank you, like, I hope you enjoy this. And when I was the librarian, they would come in when I had a meeting and help me move tables and stuff because I was always thanking them, bringing them things, doing things for them. And the principal secretary, she's the gatekeeper, so I would make friends with her right up front so that if I wanted the ear of the principal, I had to get through the gatekeeper. And we forget that sometimes and forget that those people, we wouldn't have communion if it wasn't for the preparers. We wouldn't worship in the sanctuary looking lovely every Sunday if it wasn't for the people that cleaned every week and at Christmas that came and decorated the church. And all of that is important work.
Well, the guy who digged out the ice line.
The people that did the clean the parking lots for us and stuff.
Because that was apparently the big bulk of it was done by folks from AA.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When I was in the Air Force, they said that for every person in the air, every aircraft, 17 people on the ground. I don't know if that number's right, but that's what they used to say. The thanking, we went down to see the monks. They walked through. We're going to the car. And 2 times I encountered policemen and I thanked them for being there. They looked fairly asleep. I mean, they'd make a big deal of it, but you could tell it's like nobody thanks us for being here.
It's interesting. One of my resolutions a few years back was to have a more thankful heart for things. Like, Lord, give me a thankful heart to see when I need to give thanks for things. Sometimes, it becomes just a part of your life and you don't realize what a blessing or a gift something is. And one of the things I do is that whenever we go out, like sometimes we'll stop at Firehouse on the way home after church, or we'll go to Five Guys and get a burger or something like that. When we leave, I always go up to the counter to the people that made our sandwich and go, thank you so much. It was delicious. And the surprise on their faces, oh, well, you're so welcome. I mean, like, I don't think people say that. And at Five Guys, Jeff goes, stop telling them thank you. They give us so many french fries already. I mean, it's like the minute I go in, I'll go, gosh, this is great. Oh, that's it. You know, and they're just pouring french fries in the bag. I don't know.
For one of the mental meditations, games I play with myself sometimes, it's just anything, whether it's a meal or this Bible or your glasses or whatever, and just meditate on family, all the people and all the materials and transportation. And it goes on forever. It goes on forever.
There technically is.
So that's what we're doing.
So it's just kind of interesting to me that as I become more aware of it, it's like, well, somebody had to, whatever, make the paper, somebody had to transport that. Oh, you just go on and on the ink. Just ink alone. Where does ink come from? You need oil, pigment. Where does it come? I think it's just kind of fascinating. It makes me feel really appreciative of something that I normally said. Although,
Well, my brother wanted to get a haircut, and so he made an appointment for Friday, and I took him to the place where he gets his haircut. And who was the receptionist there? Nancy Roper from our church. And when I walked in, she goes, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I brought my brother for a haircut. She just loved on him and just, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were her brother. I love you. He's been about that.
she's my Uber driver.
He's kind of looking at me and he goes, I said, she goes to my church and he gets church, And so he goes, oh, she goes to your church. And I was like, yep, she goes to. And the people from his church came today to get him to go to church. And they're getting him Tuesday because they have Bible study. So they're coming to get him to take him to church. And so they've been very gracious to taking care of him.
Yeah, one of the guys picks him up and takes him out for lunch and runs errands for him or with him,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've been very faithful, and I find myself very thankful that he has such a loving and caring community. And they just got a new minister, and he's going to meet him for the first time. So people have been calling and telling him. You know, I met the new minister. His name is Jack Frost. Yeah. And they're all just loving that that's his name. And
Yeah,
he's the nicest guy. You're so comfortable the instant you meet him. And so he's not going to feel anxious about going to meet them. And so,
No one ever forgets his name.
oh, never.
Yeah.
And it goes on to say about the wicked and the worthless. David says, it's not up to you what we do with the spoils. These are spoils the Lord gave us. Yeah, like this is not your spoil. It's not even my spoils, although they kept going, this is David's, you know. No, this is spoils the Lord has given us. And David felt, when you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense to share it, and what God gives us, we need to be good stewards of. And so then he said, let us not wrong our brethren. God has been kind to us. Now let's be kind to them. So David overruled the wicked men. And so with a great deal of mildness, for the force of reason is sufficient without the force of passion. He calls them his brethren rather than, you know, a put down to the wicked and worthless. And superiors, and it made the comment, leaders seldom lose their power who show kindness. It's more with haughtiness and condescension that you lose your power. So, and it says, David made this a statute and ordinance for Israel from that day to this. Okay, the sharing of the wealth is an ordinance still in Israel today. That it became law. That when the nation receives a victory, it's a victory for all. It's a victory for those that stayed behind and prayed and rooted. It's a victory for those who fought. And that all will share in whatever is the result of that victory. All will share. Let's see. And the statute is called Primo Davidus, and that stands for in the first year of David's reign. And so, and
What's the name of the communities, you know, that people live in, that some people live in? Kibbutz? Yeah. Something that's sort of the groundwork for kibbutz.
maybe so. And it says that when David came back to Ziklag, he sent some of the spoils to the elders of Judah. David knew that his time spent with the Philistines had strained some of his relationships with the Israelites, and that he needed to make amends. And so by sending these spoils, he's reminding them, I never forgotten my roots. I've never forgotten my faith. I'm still a one God man, and I want to send these things to you.
But he had also been kind of sending plunder to the southern part of Judah to strengthen them. You know, last week, you know, when he would go in and attack all of those, tell the Philistines that he was killing people who were against them. He was really, you know, killing enemies of Israel, of Judah, and then giving the plunder back to Israel. To strengthen them. So he was making some friends too.
In the long list of names of where he sent things, the very first place he sent things to was was Bethel. And Bethel is the house of God. That place shall be first served for its name's sake. And it's where the ark was. The ark of the covenant was there. So he sent first to Bethel. And the last place he sent things to was Hebron. And that's where he set up his kingship, was in Hebron. So first and last, and he saved the best for the last. Like, here's where I'm going to set up my kingdom. This is going to be the head of my power, the seat of my power. And so Bethel got it. That's where the ark is. God is going to get these things, and Hebron. And then all these little, there were 13 cities in all that got things. I think it said 13, maybe 15. So it says that by sending these presents, David showed his generosity. He aimed not to enrich himself, but to serve his country, and therefore God, because his country, in his opinion, was God. His gratitude, and he sent them to all the places his men were going to be living. Let me make sure that we receive kindness from everyone that sheltered us, gave us intelligence, gave us provisions, took care of us. His piety, he called the present a blessing from God. His policy, he, as you said, let me send you these things, and now I'm becoming a statesman, and I'm setting up people to support me when I'm king. And this is the final step in David restoring his rightful relationship with Israel. He strengthened himself in the Lord. He inquired of the Lord. He believed in God's promise. He did what God told him to do. He showed unexpected care and kindness to others. David said it was the Lord's victory. He didn't take any credit himself. David shared the reward with others. David did what he could do to mend relationships. And David sent the spoil from the battle to 13 cities. So David's working as a statesman to repair this relationship, this bond, so that when he ascends the throne, he won't have to build from scratch. He's already got, as Susan said, and she's right, he was already starting the statesmanship part of being a leader.